I never thought a simple object could hold my entire world together. Yet, every morning, I wound my late husband Frank's Rolex. The watch wasn't just about time, it was about him. His warmth, his laughter, his steady hand that always found mine when I needed it most. The Rolex ticked on, reminding me of the life we built together. It was the one thing keeping me tethered to him after he was gone. But one day, that tether snapped. I remember standing at the kitchen table that morning, sunlight streaming through the curtains, the house unbearably quiet. Frank's coffee mug sat where it always had, a faint stain at the rim from his last sip. My fingers brushed against it before moving to the watch on my wrist. The ritual was simple: wind it, feel its weight, and carry him with me through the day. But that morning, the watch wasn't there. Searched everywhere, the nightstand, the dresser, the small velvet box I always kept in the drawer. Nothing. And then, a voice broke the silence. "It's gone, Mom. Stop looking." I turned, stunned. Mike, my only son, leaned against the doorway. His wife Ashley stood beside him, arms crossed, a smug look plastered on her face. My heart pounded. "Gone? What do you mean, gone?" Mike shrugged. "I sold it. You don't need it. It's just a watch. We needed the money more." The room spun. "You sold your father's watch?" Ashley rolled her eyes. "Oh, don't be so dramatic. We're going to Santorini. A luxury trip, once in a lifetime. You're just sitting here clinging to the past. Let us live a little." Her words sliced through me. That watch wasn't just gold and gears. It was my marriage, my memories, my heart. "You had no right," I whispered, my voice shaking. Mike's expression hardened. "Stop whining. It's already sold. Be happy for us. Dad would have wanted us to enjoy life." Beat, low, intense tone. "No. Frank would never have wanted this." I didn't care what they said. I wasn't going to let the last piece of Frank vanish into the hands of strangers. I drove to the pawn shop, a small brick building with bars on the windows, the smell of dust and old wood heavy in the air. Behind the counter stood Danny, the owner. Stocky, middle-aged, with kind eyes that softened when he saw me clutching the empty velvet box. "Danny, please," I begged. "My son sold a Rolex here. It belonged to my late husband. I need it back." He frowned, checking his ledger. "Yes, ma'am, but I'm afraid it's already gone. Sold yesterday to a private collector. Cash deal. Can't trace it." The words hit me like a punch to the chest. "Gone." I turned away, tears blurring my vision. My hand brushed the inside of the empty box, and that's when Danny stopped me. "Wait," he said, pulling the box from my hands. He tapped the lining, then pried open a hidden compartment I'd never noticed. Inside was a thin, yellowed envelope. My breath caught as Danny handed it over. My name was written on the front, in Frank's handwriting. Hands trembling, I tore it open. Inside, a single sheet of paper. On it, a series of numbers and letters, carefully written in Frank's neat script. I stared at it, confused. "What is this?" Danny leaned closer. "Looks like a code. Maybe a password." The room seemed to tilt. Why would Frank hide something inside the Rolex box? And why leave it for me to find only after the watch was gone? I clutched the paper to my chest, my heart racing with equal parts fear and hope. Somewhere in these letters and numbers, Frank had left me a message. A secret. A key to something bigger than I could imagine. But at that moment, I didn't know whether it would save me, or destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. I sat in my car outside the pawn shop, staring at the slip of paper in my hands. Numbers and letters, carefully written, precise, almost cold. Frank's handwriting was unmistakable, but why would he leave me a code? My fingers traced the faded ink, and I whispered his name like a prayer. "Frank, what are you trying to tell me?" 4 days, I couldn't think of anything else. I carried the envelope everywhere, slipping it under my pillow at night, hiding it in my apron pocket during the day. Mike and Ashley thought they had silenced me with their betrayal, but instead, they had awakened something inside me. The more I looked at the code, the more determined I became to unlock it. Late one night, I sat at the kitchen table with Frank's old reading lamp burning low. The house was silent except for the ticking of the wall clock. I spread out the paper and started searching online. Ciphers, encryption, passwords. Hours passed, my eyes burning, until suddenly, something clicked. De forma machada online banking login. My hands trembled as I typed the sequence into the browser, along with Frank's old username I remembered from years ago. De page loaded. And then, there it was. An account. Active. Current balance, $2,842,967.14. I gasped so loudly I thought the neighbors might hear. My heart pounded. I refreshed the page, certain it had to be a mistake, but the numbers stared back, steady and real. Frank had hidden millions without ever telling me. I pressed my hands to my face, tears running hot and fast. All those years we lived modestly, cutting coupons, stretching meals, wearing the same clothes until they frayed. He had this fortune tucked away. But why? Why keep it secret? Curiosity overtook the shock. I scrolled through the account history, line after line of transactions, going back decades. Real estate purchases, property sales, small deposits that grew larger over time. Frank had been quietly building an empire while I thought we were just scraping by. And then, I saw something that chilled me to the bone. A scanned document, buried in the account's secure folder. A private investigator's report. I clicked it open, my breath caught in my throat. The report was about my son, Mike. It listed debts, failed ventures, gambling losses, notes on his frequenting loan sharks, warnings about shady business partners. And at the end, one paragraph that made my blood run cold. Subject has spoken openly about declaring his mother mentally incompetent in order to gain control of family assets. My hands shook as I read the words again and again. My son. My flesh and blood. The boy I raised alone after Frank spent long hours working. The boy I fed, clothed, and stayed up nights for when he was sick. He had planned to strip me of my dignity, to lock me away while he stole everything. I dropped the paper and sobbed until my chest hurt. The next morning, I tried to reason with him. I invited him over, made coffee, even baked his favorite cinnamon rolls. For a moment, I thought I saw the boy I once knew, the one who used to tug on my apron strings. But the moment passed. You found something, didn't you? He asked sharply, his eyes narrowing. My mouth went dry. Frank left, records, money, and proof of what you were planning. Ashley smirked from across the table, swirling her coffee. Oh, so you did snoop. Good for you. Saves us the trouble of explaining. Listen, you can't handle that kind of money, and you know it. Why don't you just sign over the access? Mike will manage it. You can keep a little for yourself, enough for groceries or knitting or whatever you do. I stared at them, stunned by their audacity. I will never give you control, I said firmly. Mike slammed his cup down. Don't be stupid, Mom. You're old, you're vulnerable, and the courts will side with me when I tell them you're unfit. It's better for you if you cooperate. The words sliced deeper than any knife. That night, I sat alone again, Frank's code in one hand, my son's threats echoing in my ears. And then I remembered something Frank had told me once, long ago, when we sat on the porch watching the sunset. If anything ever happens to me, trust the right people. Not everyone with our blood deserves your trust. I picked up the envelope and dialed the number scribbled on the back, one I hadn't noticed before. A man answered on the second ring. His voice was calm, professional. This is Thomas Chin. Thomas, my husband Frank, he left me this code, this account, and your number. There was a pause. Then he said softly, Ma'am, Frank trusted me with everything. He knew this day might come. He prepared for it. I need you to listen carefully. I gripped the phone, my pulse hammering in my ears. What did he prepare? I asked. Thomas's voice lowered. The truth, the evidence, and a plan to protect you from your son. My breath caught. Frank had known. He had seen the betrayal coming. And now, through this stranger's voice on the line, he was reaching back from the grave to save me. Thomas continued, his tone firm. We'll meet tomorrow. Bring the envelope. Bring everything you found. Frank left you more than money. He left you the keys to justice. I sat frozen, the phone pressed to my ear, the weight of his words crushing and lifting me all at once. My son had stolen from me, lied to me, planned to destroy me. But Frank had seen it all, and even in death, he had armed me for the battle ahead. As I set the phone down, I felt something shift deep inside. I was no longer just a grieving widow clinging to a watch. I was the keeper of a secret, the bearer of my husband's final gift. And I would use it to make sure Mike and Ashley paid for every cruel word, every betrayal, every ounce of pain they had caused. The Rolex was gone. But in losing it, I had gained something far greater. A map. A weapon. and the first spark of a revenge that was no longer silent. The next morning, I woke before dawn.
My hands trembled as I poured coffee. Descei-me o Frank e os editou.
The house felt heavier than ever, like the walls were holding their breath. In my purse, the envelope with the code and papers rustled softly, a reminder of the storm I was about to step into. I drove to the address Thomas had given me. A small office, tucked away on a quiet street, blinds drawn, no flashy signs. Inside, the smell of old paper and strong coffee hit me. And there he was, Thomas Chin. Gray at the temples, sharp eyes that seemed to see right through me, dressed in a neat suit that looked more functional than stylish. He didn't waste time with small talk. He spread out files across his desk, each labeled with Mike's name. Bank statements, recorded phone calls, photographs of meetings with men I didn't recognize. Frank hired me years ago, Thomas explained. He suspected Mike was walking down a dangerous path. Frank didn't want to believe it, but he wanted to be prepared. My stomach turned as I flipped through the pages. Proof of fraud. Money laundering. Deals with people whose names I'd only ever heard in news reports about arrests and raids. Thomas tapped one folder. This is enough to bury him. But Frank wanted me to make sure you understood. It wouldn't be easy.
Mike will fight back.
He'll try to paint you as unstable. He already has a lawyer lined up for that. I swallowed hard. He told me as much. He said he'd have me declared incompetent. Thomas's jaw tightened. Then we don't give him the chance. We go on offense. I'll bring in federal agents. We set the trap, let him think he's winning, and then we close the net. I stared at him, my heart pounding. I had never imagined my life would come to this. Secret accounts, investigators, FBI agents. But Frank had known, and he had trusted me with the truth. I felt a strange strength rising in me. For years, I had lived small, quiet, grieving. Now, I would fight. Over the next week, we prepared. Thomas coached me on what to say when Mike pressed for control. He helped me gather documents Frank had hidden, property deeds, offshore transfers, even letters Frank had written in case this day came. Each letter felt like hearing his voice again, steady and protective. When Mike called, demanding access, I played along, just as Thomas advised. I'll think about it, I told him, my voice trembling just enough to sound believable. Maybe you're right, maybe I can't handle it. Ashley chimed in with that cruel little laugh of hers. Finally, she's starting to see sense. They thought they were winning. They had no idea. The day of the trap arrived. I invited them over to discuss the papers. Thomas and 2 federal agents waited nearby, ready to step in. Mike swaggered into the living room like he owned the place, Ashley on his arm, both dressed as though they were already celebrating. So, Mom, Mike said, spreading his hands, are you ready to sign over the account? I handed him a folder. His eyes lit up as he flipped through the pages. What he didn't know was that every document inside was bait, papers Frank and Thomas had prepared that would tie him directly to fraudulent transactions. He signed eagerly, Ashley whispering in his ear, smiling like victory was theirs. And then, the knock at the door. Thomas walked in first, flanked by 2 federal agents in dark suits. Mike's smile faltered. Ashley's eyes darted, calculating. Michael Andrews, one agent said firmly, you are under investigation for fraud, conspiracy, and embezzlement. Mike's face drained of color. What? No, this is a mistake. That's my money. She's senile, she doesn't know what she's doing. But the evidence was already stacked against him. The agents read him his rights as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Ashley screamed, tried to grab the folder, but Thomas intercepted her with a calm efficiency that made my heart steady. As they dragged Mike out of my house, I felt both broken and whole. Broken because he was my son, my flesh, my blood. Whole because justice had finally been served. I thought it was over then. That the watch was gone, the money secured, the nightmare finished. But fate wasn't done with me yet.
A week later, a man knocked on my door.
An older gentleman, tall, with a kind of presence that spoke of authority even without a badge. He introduced himself quietly.
Marshal David Ross.
I served with Frank years ago. I heard what happened, and I have something for you. From his coat pocket, he pulled out a small package.
My bref occasion vrappé
The Rolex.
Frank's watch. Tis bluehead my vision as I cradled it in my hands. Where, how did you?
Ross smiled faintly. Frank entrusted it to me before he died, with instructions to return it if his plan ever played out. He wanted you to have the truth, but only when you needed it most. I ran my thumb across the cool metal, but then Ross leaned closer. There's more. Look inside. I pressed the crown and felt a tiny click. The back of the watch opened, revealing a hidden compartment no bigger than a fingernail. Inside, a micro SD card. Ross nodded. It holds recordings. Frank documented everything. Conversations with Mike, meetings he suspected were corrupt. It's the final piece. Enough to ensure Mike never gets out of this mess.
I clutched the watch. Chief's falling freely now. Frank had just left me money.
He had left me armor.